Alrighty, welcome back to Shop and Ball Week 2 picks against the spread pod. As per usual, I'm Aaron, and I am joined by Mr. John Harris to make these picks today. We're just going to dive right into it. Screw how you feeling, John, and how your week's been. It is Thursday right now. If you didn't watch last episode, obviously, probably by the time this episode is up or even listening, wherever it's YouTube or wherever podcast place you're listening to from, the Thursday night game will be over. We did make those picks last podcast. I'll bring up what we did. So the spread is Washington. They're at home. They're favored by 3.5 against the New York Giants. John picked the Giants. I picked Washington. So basically, once again, for those if you don't know, about spreads and such, Washington has to win by, since the spread's 3.5, they have to win by 4 or more points, or else John technically gets the win. So that is one of our differences of the week. But like I said, we already made those picks on the last pod. So we will be moving on to the next game on our docket here. Once again, one of the noon games. The Chicago Bears at Chicago. This is a little surprising when I saw this spread. But the Chicago Bears at home favored by 2.5 against the Cincinnati Bengals. Andy Dalton's still the starter. So presumably it's the Andy Dalton revenge game. John, who do you have here in this matchup?
I don't know. I mean, it was the Rams that we saw them play in the first week, but I just don't really have a whole lot of faith in the Bears right now. Their secondary has a lot of question marks. They look kind of weak, and that's normally been a strong suit for them with Kyle Fuller, with Eddie Jackson, Adrian Amos back in the day. But some of those guys are gone now, and they look sloppy. Even thinking of that Van Jefferson touchdown, like the guy, they should have touched him, and he got up and ran another, I think, 15 yards for the touchdown. So I don't know. I think that with the Bengals, the way that they play, Joe Mixon had a lot of success last week. Their passing attack looked good. Joe Burrow looked good. Offensive line got the job done. It's crazy to think that this Bears defense, which used to be so good, has just looked kind of weak so far. So I'm going to take the Bengals here. Just Andy Dalton. I like the guy. I hope that he can be a starter somewhere else. But I think that for the Bears, if they want to win, Justin Fields needs to start.
Yeah, so I'm in agreement with John. I picked the Bengals as well, not just to win, but basically to cover. I feel like those defensive concerns. We're seeing more of the holes in the defense. That's mainly because the offense right now is just. I mean, last game, if it wasn't for a big David Montgomery run early, I think that's what set up the Justin Fields run and touchdown. It set up one of their touchdowns. I'm blanking.
Yeah.
But regardless, other than that, I mean, they really didn't do much all day. So I wouldn't be shocked if Justin Fields does enter this game as like the actual main quarterback at some point, especially if they get off to a rough start in the first half, because this is Chicago. They are playing at Chicago, so if things don't go well the first half, fans can start cheering for Fields, and that's one thing that does worry me. But for now, I'm just gonna worry about Andy Dalton, and yeah, like we mentioned, I just not a lot of talent on this Bears offense outside of Allen Robinson. David Montgomery looked better than expected, but still, Cincinnati, like John mentioned, very good passing attack, and right now the Bears have issues to sort out in the secondary. So it scares me, and I'm going Cincinnati Bengals as well with John. So we are in agreement there. Going on to the next game here, definitely one of the easier ones to pick, at least if you're just picking straight up. But the Cleveland Browns at home, favored by 12.5. They are hosting the Houston Texans, fresh off their win against the Jaguars. So, John, who do you have here and why? Are you going to shock us?
I mean, anytime there's like a double-digit spread, it feels really hard for me to pick the team that's favored, just because it's the NFL, man. Like it's so easy for games to be so close. But I'm going with Cleveland here, and a large part of that is, first off, they looked really good last week. I know they lost, and I'm not a moral victory guy, but they looked good for most of the game. And although Houston did win against Jacksonville, Jacksonville is, they're bad, and Cleveland's pretty good. And even though Jacksonville lost, I think it was because they turned the ball over 3 times, which gave Houston easy field position, easy ways to score. I don't expect Baker Mayfield and this run first offense to do that. And then also the Jags running backs, I think they only carried the ball like 16 times in the day, but they averaged 5 yards a carry, both Robinson and Carlos Hyde. So Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt can have a field day against this Houston defense. And I'm interested to see how Houston's going to respond playing from behind, because obviously last week they didn't really have to, because they were, sort of in the driver's seat for a lot of the game. So yeah, I'm taking Cleveland, although it is a massive spread, and part of me feels like maybe, I don't know. It's weird because you feel really confident in Cleveland, but at the same time, 12.5, it's just tough.
Yeah, sorry. Didn't mean to micro kick while I was adjusting, but I'm going with Cleveland too. Very similar reasons. I mean, they should have beat the Chiefs last week. Just that issue with the fumble, with the Nick Chubb fumbled late, and then the punt went just absolutely awry when he didn't even punt it. Their punter, and it got tackled. Kansas City was already in deep in Cleveland territory, and then Baker trying to throw it away last drive and just gets clipped at the feet and ends up, of course, going right to Mike Hughes. So, yeah, I expect Cleveland to take care of business, win this game handily, and for Houston, it's going to be status. This is going to be status quo for Houston most of the season, at least against teams like this. Maybe against Jacksonville, they'll beat them again. Who the heck knows? But yeah, going Browns here to win and cover the spread. Just not a shocker. But going on to the next one. We already alluded to them. The LA Rams favored by 3.5, going to Indianapolis, fresh off their loss against Seattle. So, John, who do you have here between Matt Stafford and Carson Wentz?
I was a little bit surprised at how poorly I felt the Colts looked last week. I thought they would have a lot more success against Seattle. And I mean, as we talked about on our season-long predictions, talking about the Rams and the Seahawks, I feel like the Rams are clearly the better team. So I expect the Rams to take care of business here. I mean, they looked really good against Chicago. I don't know who's better between Indianapolis and Chicago as of right now. I mean, it's going to be tough, but I think they're sort of similarly built. I think that overall Indianapolis is probably the more talented team, so I think it'll be a harder matchup than it was last week. I think Jonathan Taylor could have a pretty good game. As we saw, David Montgomery had success against this Rams defense. But overall, I mean, Aaron Donald's still Aaron Donald. Jalen Ramsey's going to be all over the place. And, the Colts don't really have a true number one receiver as of right now. So he's just going to take whoever, he wants out of the game. And then, on the other side, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, I think they're just going to have a field day. Because although the Colts defense is good, we saw that Russell Wilson, he was dicing them up last week. So I'm taking the Rams.
Yeah, I'm taking the Rams as well. I still think it'll be a close game, and it wouldn't shock me if Indianapolis, somehow got the backdoor cover late in the game. Maybe Rams put themselves up 10 with like 3 minutes left. Indianapolis scores touchdown, but then doesn't get onside or doesn't stop the run. But still, I learned my lesson from last week. I'm just gonna go with whoever I believe is gonna win. So I'm going with the Rams here. I think Indianapolis a little bit is better than what you're giving them credit for, but I will say last week, I mean, because they were close. They were in that game for the most part last week. It's just, I think they're really missing their left. Having issues at left tackle because Seattle really went after that. I think it was Julian Davenport. He had a rough game last week, and obviously going up against why am I blinking on not Robert Quinn, Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd, underrated piece of that Rams defense. So I feel like he could have a good day. But yeah, I'm with you. It's just Indianapolis has been dealing with too much, and then to go back, play another week. We already mentioned the rough schedule. Oh, now you have the Rams right after the Seahawks, and once again the Rams. Sean McVay, very similar with the Seattle scheme, playing Seattle twice a year for X amount of years. So yeah, going with the Rams as well for this one to win and cover. But going on to one of the more exciting games of the week. Not that one will be exciting, but who knows? But next one up is the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, favored by 3.5 against the Miami Dolphins. Let me pull up who is at home while, John, you tell us what your pick is.
I am going to go with the Dolphins here. I think it's going to be a close game, so that's why I'm taking Miami on the under. I don't know if they win, but I think they'll cover. I could see this one being a field goal game. Um, I just think that Xavier Howard's going to shadow Stephon Diggs the whole game, and then on the other side, Byron Jones is going to see Devontae Parker or Will Fuller or whoever. Sorry, not I just named Dolphins receivers. Emmanuel Sanders and then Cole Beasley. I think he's probably the one that's going to have the most success against the Dolphins defense. I think he's going to be sort of the X factor for the Bills offense. But overall, I like the Dolphins here to cover. Um, I do worry a little bit about Tua and their offense, but they get Will Fuller back this week. So the addition of him, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, Miles Gaskin. I think they have weapons to have some success. But like I said, I don't know who's going to win. I'm taking the Dolphins to cover because I think it'll be a close one just because of what the Miami defense can do to the Buffalo receivers.
Yeah, but so definitely a tough one to pick. I'm going Buffalo to win and obviously cover. Um, One reason, I mean, they seem to have great success against Miami last year, even at the beginning and at the I think week 17 against this defense. They do have that going for them. And then on the other side, I mean, like I mentioned, that like in our week reactions, I believe like Tua still kind of looks like what he did last year. Just kind of managing the game. I'm not saying he's a terrible quarterback, but didn't really take many shots downfield. And even if they get Will Fuller back, I just don't think he has the arm for that. I think Buffalo, they just have Miami's number, even though this is at Miami, by the way, which I looked up. I think Buffalo's going to be the more desperate team too. They lost last week. You do not want to fall 0-2, especially the second game losing a division to a division rival. Um, so yeah, going with Buffalo to win and cover here. But once again, this is just like I think the last game where I'm like, man, it's going to be a close game. I'm just hoping like Buffalo scores a late touchdown, makes it like a 28-24-ish is what I'm hoping for. But I could easily be wrong, as I was last week. So, yeah, going with Buffalo there and my boy Josh Allen for that one. But keeping it in the AFC East, New England Patriots is the next game. They are favored by 6.5, going to New York to play the Jets. I assume we're both going New England to win this one, but do we believe that they will cover? John, do you believe that New England will cover?
Yeah, I'm going to keep this just short and simple. I mean, I always talk about Bill Belichick against young quarterbacks. I like Zach Wilson, but I haven't seen a quarterback really, especially in the rookie year, that has been able to overcome the Bill Belichick factor. Because you're just still you're learning the NFL, and Bill Belichick, he's the master of taking advantage of that. So I'm taking the Patriots here to cover because yeah, I plus Mekhi Becton's out. Like
Yep.
I don't know. I just feel like Zach's gonna be running for his life the whole game.
Yeah, he was already running for his life last game. I forget. He got sacked a couple times. But yeah, now that Makai's out, and yeah, Bill Belichick, like you mentioned, you're gonna throw some crazy stuff at him, confuse Zach early, and on the flip side, I think that they'll be able to, once again, like this, they were a fumble away from beating the Dolphins last week, and Mac Jones looked solid too, didn't really make any mistakes, played within himself, didn't try to force things, so yeah, I'm and this, and I think we can all agree this Jets defense is worse than Miami's defense as a whole. So I expect more, just more points and more success for New England on offense. So yeah, unfortunately, as much as I love my boy Zach Wilson, hopefully he hangs in there. I'm also going with New England to win and cover. Shocker. But so that is that. That's going on to the next game here. The San Francisco 49ers are favored by 3.5, going to Philadelphia. Both teams fresh off a win. So, John, who do you have here between the two?
This one, I don't know. I feel like the only reason that I felt like it was a little bit tough was because Philly's defense looked really good last week and surprised me in a lot of ways. And also, I think that Jalen Hurts and his ability to run could really bode well for them in this game, just because you gotta worry about Nick Bosa and Fred Warner and some of these guys in the front seven, but I think his ability to extend plays might help. But overall, I think I got to stick with the Niners. Kyle Shanahan. I mean, I know that last week at the end of the game things sort of crumbled, but they were destroying the Lions for a long time, and I think that Philly's going to be riding high off that Falcons win, but I think they have a lot of young guys that are in really key spots on this team that might have sort of an inflated confidence because of what they faced last week with Atlanta and San Francisco. Compared to Atlanta, San Francisco, far better defensive line, far better offensive line, so they can deal with the really good parts that Philly has in the trenches. Better linebackers, better just everything.
I'd say more established wide receivers, at least.
Yeah, honestly. You take away Calvin Ridley, better receivers. And even last week, like Debo Samuel blew up and Calvin didn't have an amazing game. George Kittle's there. So I don't know. I feel like the Niners just have so many more things that are far better than what Philly had to deal with last week. And so I think, Eagles fans might be in a little bit for a rude awakening as to where their team might be. Now, maybe I'll be dead wrong about this one and Philly's better than I'm giving them credit for. I know Tony Romo's kind of a believer in Philly right now, which I thought was surprising, but he said they can win like 10 games. So we'll see. But I think that Kyle Shanahan and the boys, they're going to have success running the ball. I think that their defense, they'll be able to stop some of the things that Philly was able to do last week.
Yeah, I'm going with you. I'm picking San Fran to not only win but cover. While John mentioned credit to Philly's got a good D line. Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, but I still don't see any difference makers on linebacker, and they got away with that last week. I don't think they'll get away with it this week. Like John alluded to, I think Shanahan's still gonna find ways to, with his really good offensive line, just to create openings, and Elijah Mitchell in the game will take advantage. And then once Philly's kind of put in a bind, even if they're not, I'm still confident that San Francisco will have a creative enough passing game, or even if the run game's going play action game like we saw last week, where he's going to find Debo Samuel, George Kittle, maybe if Ayuk gets out of the doghouse, Ayuk as well, or Sherfield. But yeah, I expect this, especially after last week, like John mentioned. They got up big and they can't let the foot off the gas pedal. I think Kyle Shanahan's going to really emphasize for them full 4 quarters of just pedal to the metal here, guys. Let's not give them a chance. So going with San Francisco also for that matchup there. But going on to this next game, Pittsburgh Steelers at Heinz Field. They are favored by 5.5, hosting the Las Vegas Raiders, fresh off their exciting Monday night win. Man, I went over this one a lot in my head, but I'm curious to see what your thoughts were on this one, John. Who do you have here and why?
Shockingly enough, this one after last week felt really easy to me, and I'm taking the Raiders. And that's because if you look at last week, the Raiders actually had Lamar Jackson as the most pressured quarterback in the entire league last week. Obviously, it's 1 week. You don't want to overreact, but the Raiders D-line, like they looked really good. Max Crosby, he led the way, but overall, they looked really good. It does suck that Yannick Ngakoue is not going to be playing this week, but they get Clyde Farrell back, who I thought was a healthy scratch last week, but I'm hearing from our resident Raiders fan, Mike, that maybe there was some back issues that were bothering him from preseason that, was probably the reason that he ended up sitting out. So they get him back. And I think this defense against, once again, a very bad Pittsburgh offensive line, I think that they could have some success pressuring him, because we saw the success that they were able to have against the Ravens offensive line, who's pretty good. It does scare me on the other side of the ball, Derek Carr versus the Steelers defense, because, TJ Watt, he's a monster. Cameron Hayward, monster. Like they got a lot of beast on the defensive line. And so I think it's going to be a tough day for guys like Josh Jacobs, but I think that, the tried and true strategy of throwing 20 times to Darren Waller is good enough to at least get him some points. And then once again, the defense, I think that they're going to have a field day against the Pittsburgh, offensive line. So I'm taking the Raiders to cover. I don't know if they'll win, but I think they'll at least cover. And I do think they have a shot at winning this one.
Yeah, I'm with you, John. I think this will be a close game. I don't have much confidence in Pittsburgh's offense. Like I mentioned last week, I mean, it took the block punt, and really just the block punt was really the turning point for them. They only had that one touchdown drive, and also the failed fourth down conversion where they pitched it backwards 6 feet and had no plan. But yeah, I'm not confident in Pittsburgh's offense, and the Raiders' defense looked better than I thought it would be last week. And on the flip side, although I think Pittsburgh's defense as a whole is more balanced than the Ravens, I do like John mentioned the Darren Waller factor. Hunter Renfro. I think John Gruden will in the game will at least keep it close. There's one of those games where I'm kind of glad there's a spread because I feel like the spread might save us this one because Pittsburgh could easily win. But yeah, going with the Las Vegas Raiders here to at least cover, but wouldn't shock me if they win either. Start the year off 2-0. Man, that would really help John Gruden and Mike Mayock. But yeah, that does scare me. I didn't know about Yannick Ngakoue being out, and obviously who knows if Clement Furrow will play and what impact even he'll have if he plays. But as long as Crosby's there, feeling a little bit better about that pick. So going on to another divisional matchup, not that that one was, but the New Orleans Saints, fresh off that pounding that they gave my Packers, are favored by 3.5. They're going to Carolina to face Matt Rule and the boys. So John, I see on the spreadsheet here, but I'll let you tell your pick and why. Why you hating on your boy?
Listen. I like Matt Rule a lot. Okay, I really do. But I was very impressed with what I saw out of the Saints last week, and I think that's bought them at least another week of my belief in them. A large part was their defense. I think that McCaffrey is going to have himself what he always does. Um, but I expect their defense to maybe have some success, in the trenches on against the offensive line. Maybe they get after Sam Darnold and make him feel uncomfortable. I mean, they did that against Aaron Rodgers, and I would say even without Bakhtiari, the Packers line is probably better than the Panthers. I mean, maybe I'm just discounting the Panthers line a little bit because I honestly am not incredibly familiar with all the guys they have
Two
over
Panther
there.
fans in the comment section start going after you.
Yeah, I know that they got
Daryl
I think his
Williams.
name's Taylor Moton, right?
Mo-
He's the right
oh,
tackle.
sorry, Moton. I mean, yeah, he's one of the better right tackles.
Yeah, and he's really good.
That's himself.
Their center's name is escaping me. I think he used to play for the Broncos. Anyway, I mean, they have some good key pieces over there, but I mean, even last week, I wasn't super impressed with the Panthers against the Jets, and we talked about that in our reactions when I felt like the Panthers should have had a better performance. And on the flip side, I was incredibly impressed by what the Saints did against the Packers. I'm not sure the status of Marshawn Lattimore. I saw somewhere that he might be missing a few weeks because of injury. So I'm making this pick with the assumption that he's not going to be playing. But yeah, I like the Saints here. I like the Jameis Winston deep ball added factor to the Saints offense. I think that we're going to see more of that this week because, like we talked about last week, they only had 150 yards in the air. Zach Wilson, I mean, although he was running for his life last game, he was having success. Like he threw 2 touchdowns. I think he had over 250 yards. Like he had success against this Panthers defense. So I think that the Saints should absolutely be able to do it as well, especially because Sean Payton. I mean, I love Matt Rule, but Sean Payton, one of the best coaches in the NFL.
Yeah, and this is not because they beat me, beat my Packers, but I went with Carolina. I think Carolina's going to keep it close, if not, maybe even win the game. I like I it was encouraging last week what they did, and I think too that they can better expose, especially with if Marshawn Lattimore is out as well. I think they have, I think the talent and a better, just more creative passing scheme to expose, in theory, New Orleans secondary. I mean, Paulson Debo had a great game, but after that, still a lot of guys with question marks. And once again, Paulson Debo is still a rookie, so he could easily have a bad game this game. But it's a tall order to guard DJ Moore, Terrace Marshall Jr., and Robbie Anderson. And I think obviously that they'll utilize McCaffrey better than we utilize Aaron Jones, and obviously McCaffrey is better than Aaron Jones. That's given. But and I think Carolina's defense too is just better fit to stop New Orleans. Big defensive front, athletic linebackers that can do with like Shaq Thompson, who had a good game last week. I just think the Panthers are better as a whole, better equipped to handle the New Orleans Saints than my Packers were, since obviously they play them twice a year. So going with Carolina here to at least cover, but wouldn't shock me if they pull off the win at home. That would be definitely a huge statement win if they can do so. So that is that divisional matchup. Going on to the last game of the noon docket. Denver Broncos, fresh off their win, favored by 6.5, going to Jacksonville amid facing Urban Meyer amid all the USC rumors that he's hearing. John, who do you have here? You going with Denver? Or are we believing in what you didn't believe in Urban last week, but are you believing in Urban?
No, I mean I picked Denver to beat the Giants and I picked Houston to beat the Jags. I think that Denver is better than Houston is, and I think the Giants are better than the Jags. I think the Giants are better than the Jags are. So, I mean, just following consistently here, I'm taking Denver. Um, I don't know, man. I feel like it's going to be another rough game for Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to have some turnovers here. I mean, Broncos have a really good defense. I think Von Miller's going to miss this one because I saw that he re-injured something. But still, you got Bradley Chubb. You got really good corner room. Kyle Fuller's also missing, I believe. So Patrick Surtain is now getting the start. But yeah, I'm still not worried. I feel like Jacksonville just has so many holes to where Denver, if they want to, they can just sit there and let Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams go to work. But I still think that Teddy Bridgewater is going to have a successful day because we saw Tyrod Taylor and Brandon Cooks were able to eat that Jags defense alive. I expect Noah Fant to have a really good game. Cortland Sutton, so I'm taking Denver. Not shocking.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep mine short. Going with Denver also. Not trusting in Urban Meyer after last week. I just wasn't impressed, and this is a Denver team that's rolling, like John mentioned, good defense, and Teddy takes care of the ball. So I don't think they're going to have many opportunities as well, Jacksonville, to be in plus territory and capitalize off that. So going Denver as well. We'll keep that one short and sweet. Now we're getting to the afternoon games. The Arizona Cardinals are at home, favored by 3.5, hosting the Minnesota Vikings. I'll go first real quick since I was quick. I'm going Arizona. We saw Kyler Murray last week fully healthy. Cliff seems to be dabbling in some creativity like we saw, different formations. Oh, Kyler's under the center now. They have good utilization of both the running backs. And besides really Daniil Hunter, I feel like Kyler's really going to run circles around the defensive line of Minnesota. They have a good big defensive line to stop the run, but to chase around little Kyler Murray, I think they're going to tire out. And the only saving grace might be their linebackers, but regardless, I'm not confident in the corners. We saw last week Patrick Pearson just absolutely get turned around by Jamar Chase. Well, Jamar Chase is good, but he's still a rookie, and it's just not a good look for right now for Minnesota. So going with I'm blank for a second. Going with the Cardinals, but I don't know why I had the scary feeling that Minnesota might somehow win this game just because they might be desperate and pull something. But I'm also not confident in their offense. We saw the Bengals really kind of hold them down for most of the game, and I think Arizona, especially after last week, their defense is feeling it with their two middle linebackers and Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt, and obviously Bode at the back end. I think they'll be all over Minnesota's stuff. So going Arizona here to win and cover. John, what about yourself?
I almost took Minnesota too because I'm just worried that the Cardinals' inconsistency strikes. Last year I think I had them going like 5-0 to start the year, and like week 3 hit, and they lost to, I think it was the Panthers, maybe it was the Jets. I don't know. It was some team who last year just wasn't very good. And Minnesota, I think they have the keys to be successful in this game, but overall, if Arizona was able to handle Derrick Henry like they did and stop, Julio Jones and AJ Brown, and then just destroy that defense, like I feel like Minnesota is very similarly built to Tennessee, but they're worse. I don't know if they'll have the exact same success because Dalvin Cook's obviously a different back than
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry is. He's a lot more shifty, more agile. He's got a little bit more speed, so maybe he can, have some success bouncing things to the outside. But yeah, overall, I think I agree with you. I think that Kyler Murray he's going to have a good day. DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, we saw what Jamar Chase did against Patrick Peterson, like you said, and I think DeAndre Hopkins is, he's just going to go off. So, yeah, Arizona.
Alrighty. Alrighty. So going on to the next game here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home again, favored by 12.5, hosting the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah. So I think we both feel like Tampa Bay is going to win. Question is, do we feel that they will cover? John, do you think Tampa Bay Bucks will cover that 12.5 point spread?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's, we saw what Atlanta did last week. Tampa is so much better than Philly. I think Tampa is they're going to dominate them.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just double checking to make sure it is at Tampa Bay. Okay, just want to make sure because that was weird. But yeah, going Tampa Bay, I think they'll cover. I mean, yeah, they're going to do what they want offensively, run the ball. Why did it do that again? All right, sorry. So now we're back. But yeah, I just feel like Tampa Bay, like John, going to do whatever they want offensively and defensively. Yeah, you couldn't handle Philly's front four last week, Atlanta. You don't have much faith you'll be able to handle Tampa Bay's front seven. And yeah, they even have a better secondary too. So going Tampa Bay there. We'll keep that one short and simple. Going to the next game here, the LA Chargers at home, favored by 3.5, hosting John's Dallas Cowboys. John, you going with Jerry and the boys?
I was going to, but then I saw the news that Terrence Steele is going to be starting at right tackle,
Oof.
and that,
Isn't that because Lael's out for 5 weeks, right?
So, if anyone doesn't know, Lael Collins got suspended for 5 games, and it's reportedly because he's been drug tested like 180 times over however many months, and never once has he tested positive for anything, but he's missed 7 of the drug tests because of like mitigating circumstances. I don't know why, but he's missed 7 of them. And so they suspended him for 5 games. His team is arguing it. But anyway, he's not playing. And I figured Zach Martin would swing to right tackle and they would just keep the same line that they did last week. But instead, Zach Martin is going back to right guard. I believe that means Connor McGovern is going to the bench and Terrence Steele is going to come in as a starting right tackle. And as we all know, Joey Bosa is on that side, and I think he's going to eat Terrence Steele alive. So I just feel like the Chargers are going to get easy defensive stops because of the pressure they're going to get with, Joey Bosa on that side. And also now DeMarcus Lawrence is out because he broke his foot, and we already couldn't get any pressure on Tampa Bay last week. And I think it's even less likely we're going to get pressure now, especially against the Chargers offensive line who played Washington. And I think they had Justin Herbert as the least pressured quarterback all week for the NFL. So they looked really good. And so I basically, I think they're going to win the battle of the trenches. I think that Joey Bosa is going to have a monster game. And I think that we're not going to be able to get any pressure on Herbert.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, going with LA Chargers for those very similar reasons. I mean, lose one of your best, if not your best defensive player right now. Yeah, the Chargers offense was rolling, had some success last week. I think they'll be even better this week. That line looked good. And then, like John mentioned, on the flip side, and I'm not sure if maybe different under Kellen Moore, but in my history, with Mike McCarthy, for some reason, just never liked to have a tight end help a tackle at all. His philosophy is always, we'll leave the tackles one-on-one. They don't care if it's the best pass rusher in history and our fourth-string tackle. That's what we do. And yeah, like John kind of alluded to, is it Terrence Steele?
Yeah,
he said
he sucks.
Terrence Steele against Joey Bosa. I think we're all going to take Joey Bosa. But even if they show help that side, it's going to be tough sledding. Little bit better of a secondary with the Chargers too, sounder system. I think at least on the back end than the Bucks. So yeah, unfortunately for John's Cowboys, I'm going to LA Chargers. But hey, I don't know. I think I know what John's doing too. But maybe the curse will actually work fully this time, where they'll actually win the game as opposed to just covering, unlike last week.
Like I said, last week I wasn't going to pick them because it's Tampa Bay, which clearly I should have because they covered. But this week, like I said, I was going to pick them, but then just the news came out that Terrence Steele was going to start, and I am just he is so bad. Like I truly don't understand why they're starting him there. I don't get it. And then the DeMarcus Lawrence news came out, and so it's yeah, I just when you lose the battle of the trenches, I can't see a way that we win, and it sucks because that means we're starting 0-2.
All right, and going to the last game of the afternoon slate. To be honest, these afternoon games could turn out to be stinkers. Like they could all be blowouts or boring games. Just realizing now. But the last afternoon game is the Seattle Seahawks at home hosting. Sorry, Seattle Seahawks at home favored by 5.5, hosting the Tennessee Titans. Um, John, I'll throw it to you first. Do you think Tennessee can bounce back, or do you foresee Seattle going 2-0 here?
I think Seattle wins, but I'm going to take Tennessee to cover, and I think that to me it's going to be a shootout. I know Russell Wilson and the gang, they're going to have a lot of offensive success, but I expect Tennessee to clean it up after last week. They're not going to have to deal with a pass rush like we saw from Arizona. And so I think their offensive line will have more success controlling the line of scrimmage. That's going to get Derrick Henry going. That's going to activate Ryan Tannehill in the passing game. So I think that Tennessee will cover. I do think Seattle wins, but I think it'll be like a field goal or something. But at the same time, I am a little scared that maybe Tennessee is not as good as people think they are because of last week. And then on the flip side, Seattle looked really good. So that does worry me a little bit. It is, the first half of the season where let Russ cook is in full-fledged force. But I'm taking Tennessee to cover here.
So I'm going with Seattle. Here's a few reasons why. You had trouble chasing around Kyler Murray last week. Well, guess what? You got to chase around Russell Wilson this week, and I think he's more of a skilled escape artist than Kyler is. Now, Kyler, I think, is a little bit faster and quicker, but he's been doing this for years. On top of that, I mean, their secondary showed some holes, so that worries me, especially against. I would say this receiving core as a whole, talent-wise, is a little bit better than Arizona's, but one could argue either way. But regardless, very close in talent. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. And then on the flip side, I am worried about Seattle's defense, but I feel like that they have enough size up front that they'll be able to slow down Tennessee's offense. But yeah, I am worried about just Tennessee bouncing back and, kind of waking up. But I did factor into this will be at Seattle, at the, that place will be rocking the 12th man. Because I don't think they were even at full. I forget, but they probably weren't even close to full capacity last season. I'm assuming that they will be now. So that place is going to be rocking, going to be bumping, especially if Russ is cooking. So I think Seattle will win, but it would not shock me if Tennessee does cover. And I lose this one. So I was close to picking Tennessee, but once again, like I said, my strategy was last week I tried to thread the needle too much, pick it to have a different team win, but have a different team cover, the other team cover. I'm just going to try to go with who wins now, unless the spread's too big for me. So that is the afternoon games. Now going on to the Sunday nighter, probably one of the better ones of the two night games, or even of the three, including the one going on right now. Kansas City, favored by 3.5, going to Baltimore. Do you think Baltimore will finally get over its kryptonite, John, or do you think Kansas City holds true to being the kryptonite of the Baltimore Ravens?
After what I saw last week of what the Raiders were able to do to Baltimore, I don't expect Baltimore to be able to come into Kansas City and look any different than we've seen in years past. I want this to be a really competitive game, but Kansas City is still just, they're so good that I don't really have much more else to add outside of that I'm taking the Chiefs here.
Yeah, I'm going Kansas City as well. No Marcus Peters too. And Baltimore, they love the blitz because they kind of have to blitz. And especially when you don't have your second best cover corner and Patrick Mahomes, I think we can all agree, better than Derek Carr. And saying, it's just, man, if you're a Tyreek Hill owner or a Travis Kelce owner, especially if you're a Tyreek Hill owner, you're licking your chops. I have them in our Dynasty League, so I'm loving that. But yeah, and then on the flip side, Baltimore sorry, that's my trash alarm. I gotta remember to turn that off. Baltimore on the flip side, we saw that offense kind of stall out, and this is a Kansas City defense that is pretty used to playing Baltimore. I think they know what Greg Roman and Lamar are gonna do, and that's more Greg Roman for his simplistic kind of offense. So even if they don't get Tyrann Mathieu back this week, I expect Kansas City to be able to handle this game as well. So yeah, we're both going Chiefs to win and cover for the Sunday night game, which leaves last but not least the Monday night game. My Green Bay Packers go back to Lambeau after that embarrassing game against the Saints. They are favored by 11.5, hosting the Detroit Lions. John, are you pulling an upset here? Do you think the Packers will win? And if so, do you think they'll cover?
I do think they'll win. I don't think they'll cover. If I'm wrong about this one, I accept that. In Green Bay, that means they bounce back in a big way. And part of me does feel like that could happen, but I'm going to take Detroit to cover. Like I said, the double-digit spreads are always just tough for me. The only reason that I took the other two is because I think that it's Houston, Atlanta. I think they're both worse than Detroit is, even though I think Detroit's pretty bad. But overall, I think that Detroit has some keys to success that could help them against the Packers, notably throwing to their running backs. I think that Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift could continue to have success out of the backfield as receiving options. They both looked really good last week, and also provides Jared Goff sort of a safety blanket because they're not hard throws to make. TJ Hawkinson is good. So I expect him to have a solid week against the Packers. But overall, I do think that the Packers are going to win here. But I'd say more like a 10-point game. But like I said, if I'm wrong about this one, I accept it. I went with I would say the risky play because I feel like, Aaron Rodgers could be a little pissed after last week and take it out on Detroit.
Yeah, we'll see if Green Bay comes up sharper. I mean, I will say, though, Detroit has good size up front. So we'll see if we can still run the ball, because I think I showed last week if we can't run the ball, especially if Aaron Rodgers isn't still up to form, because obviously I think last week definitely showed signs of rust from his elongated offseason, then we're in trouble. But I really wanted to go Detroit here the more I thought about it, but I'm sticking with Green Bay. But God forbid we lose, or if we don't cover, I may have to go back to the what I did last year, which is to start picking against the Packers, and then they'll pull through. But so that is our picks once again. So we have one, two. I should have highlighted 1, 2.
I think we have 5,
3, 4, 5. Yep, I didn't see New Orleans. 5 differences. Last week, John went 8-8. I went 4-12. So if I have a week like John last week where most of them swing my way, we could easily tie it. But who knows? May not. Maybe this is John's year. But regardless, that is our picks